Hello, my name is John Rose, and in this video I'd like to take a closer look at skinny fats on a juice fast, or what I like to call a solid food vacation. And in order to understand what skinny fats need to do on a solid food vacation, we need to know whether or not we are skinny fat. Now, I'm sure a lot of you know you're not, but if you're underweight, you might be. And if you are underweight, there could actually be two ways that you're underweight and a skinny fat. And in order to understand what I'm talking about here, you have to understand that we have 7 major components of weight. And most of us are a combination of over and underweight. Most of us are under-muscled. And this is what we're referring to when we talk about skinny fats. And what a skinny fat person is they look normal, they're their ideal weight, and you look at them, you think they look normal, right proportions and everything right. But what you got is a bone with a bunch of fat around it instead of muscle. Again, it looks right, but there's no muscle. So what happens when these people lose fat? They look like they're skeletons because they don't have any muscle. So people who are underweight need to understand that when you do a solid food vacation the right way, if you're under-muscled, if you're under-tissued in any way because you're diseased, you'll gain weight on a juice fast if you do it the right way. And how do you do it the right way? You have to protect your carbohydrate fuel tank. By default, we know if we drank the minimal amount of calories we need at rest, or resting metabolic rate, or metabolic rate. And I did a video explaining our ideal weight in calories and juices, and look down below in the description box and you'll see a link to that video. And if we do that by default, by what we're drinking, if we mix it up, half fruits, half vegetables, we're going to fill up our carbohydrate fuel tank. But what if you can't drink enough juice? Don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do it, man. If you can't do it, you're going to lose muscle. And that's actually what creates most skinny fats, actually, is they try to lose weight, and they use portion control instead of food selection. And when we do that, we end up kicking in gluconeogenesis, and the body will actually eat muscle for carbohydrates. That's how essential our carbohydrates are. We'll eat our own muscle. We need them so bad. And this is what creates so many skinny fats. Now, let's take a look at what happens to the average woman from that's 25 that goes to 35. I'm going to use a woman for an example, but this happens to men too. Most people in America from 25 to 35, a lot of y'all don't gain any weight. But guess what happens? Those 7 components of weight, they changed. We lost some and gained more of the other if we stay the same. What happens with the average woman, let's say the average woman, let's say 5'7" woman, she's 120 pounds, she's right where her ideal weight should be. Let's say she's 20% body fat. Now what happens if she goes from 25 to 35, she still weighs 120 pounds, but she actually lost 10 pounds of muscle and replaced it with fat. Now, muscle doesn't magically turn into fat. That's not how it works. The muscle just simply atrophies, and muscle is what burns calories. So if you're eating the same diet and the same calories, you actually gain weight. This is how these skinny fats really become skinny fats. They keep trying to lose weight, they lose muscle instead. They're burning less calories per day, and that keeps making them use muscle instead for carbohydrates. So you got to protect your carbohydrate fuel tank. Now, when this woman goes, once again, from 25 years to 35 years, and still weighs 120 pounds, but replaced 10 pounds of muscle with 10 pounds of fat, her fat percentage went from 20% to around 28%. Skinny fat, losing her muscle. But now let's say this same person lost those 10 pounds of muscle, but they didn't gain any fat. So now they only weigh 110 pounds. Well, now their body fat percentage is 22%. It's the same amount of fat, just has less weight to divide that into. So if they were to go on a solid food vacation, should a skinny fat be concerned about getting all their calories, and if they can't drink enough juice, should they go to oils? No. However, you could be underweight and your fat percentage could be dangerously low in which case it's imperative to drink the minimum amount of calories on this solid food vacation, if not in excess. And then in this case, it would not hurt to consume extra oils. And remember, everyone's unique. If you have motor neuron diseases, ALS, multiple sclerosis, we got to rebuild the myelin sheet, so we got to pound down those good quality fats, don't we? Yeah, we need to rebuild that. But for the average person, if that's not your issue, you got to give your body everything it needs. And when you look at what most people burn throughout the day, and I've analyzed this to the nth degree long time ago when I was writing a book on weight loss, because I could prove mathematically how to lose fat by understanding this carbohydrate fuel tank. And I looked at all the different possible scenarios, and I found, on an average, I tested out different diets with my formula, and it turns out most of us are going to fit in between the 40 to 50% carbohydrate burning range. And that means we actually can consume quite a bit of fat in our diet and still protect our lean body mass, provided we eat the minimum amount of calories we need for that day. But the key here is when we start eating less food, that's where we get in trouble with that carbohydrate percentage. Should have thought of this before I came out here, but it's not too hard to put examples together. Let's say you're burning 2,000 calories a day and you're consuming 2,000 calories a day, and let's say you're 50% carbohydrates. What does that mean? That means you go out and you're burning 2,000 calories, and half of those, 1,000, are carbohydrates. Now let's say you have a fuel tank that has 1,500 calories in it. Oh my God, I haven't eaten all day. My 1,500 carbohydrate fuel tank has gone down to 500. Oh mercy, what do? Well, you want to fill that fuel tank back up. What happens if it goes down below 500? Gluconeogenesis. I need my carbs, I'm going to eat your muscle. Or you can save your muscle if you eat a bunch of muscle from another animal. But that's going to damage your kidneys, and now you're really screwed because your lip system is going to be oversaturated and back up into the system. It's not the way to go. Ketosis is not the way to go with animal products. It is our default system when we stop eating and go on a water fast, but when we're eating, we don't want to kick in ketosis. We want to keep the carbohydrate fuel tank full. And you can do that with vegetable juices. There's a lot of carbs in vegetable juices. You can do a Juice Till 4 program, like the Vegetable Police. You're getting your carbs there, my friend. Those are carbs in there. And you don't want to, and again, you can, if you're on a maintenance program, you then can put quite a bit of fat into your diet. But be careful about the avocados. It isn't the fat, it's like axle grease going through there. You put too many avocados through your pipes, chances are it's going to plug you up, and I know because it's what got me in trouble every time. It wasn't the fat, it's the consistency of that stuff going through your pipes. So, how much fat can we consume on a solid food vacation in the form of oils? Well, it really depends. There is a time and a place, like the Vegetable Police, for example. His adrenals are down, can't handle any kind of fruit right now. So he's going to the vegetable juices. He does fine on those. And of course, the fat won't be a problem. And again, if the average person is burning 50% carbohydrates, the other half is fat. So we're burning, and that's including our activity throughout the day. If you do nothing all day long, you're a couch potato, and this is why these type of people do best on these type of ketogenic diets. Is they're couch potatoes, and 60% of our calories at rest are fat. So we're not burning as many carbs. As soon as I'm burning carbs every time I'm doing this. This is carb, 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 carb. If I go real fast over here to here, if I'm playing tennis, stopping and going, I'm using carbs, carbs, carbs. If I'm out here jogging all the time, and all of a sudden I keep up the same pace, and I'm going the same rate, next thing you know, after 20 minutes, I'm starting to burn fat. Half hour, 50%, hour, 90% fat. Same thing on a bicycle. But then if I'm going along and I start sprinting real quick, I go back to carbs. So most of us throughout the day, we're using carb, 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 unless we're doing the same thing over and over and over. So why am I telling you all this? Well, we got to protect our carbohydrate fuel tank. And to do that, you got to drink a lot of juice. And instead of going to fruit to get the calories, use carrots to mix in with your greens. Remember, fruits are less than ideal for most of us. However, for some of us, it's the only way we can pull this off. There's a lot of factors that go into drinking mostly vegetable juice. There's the money factor, there's the time factor, there's the taste factor. And many times when we weigh the pros and cons, it turns out, boy, it's worth it to go the distance even if I have to drink 80% of my juices from fruit. And remember, if we do too much fruit, we might need to go back to some superfoods. Oh my God, he's recommending superfoods. I don't sell any of these products, but there are certain things that are higher in minerals, and if it's a pure food, solid food supplement, and it's not loaded with heavy metals, then we can consume something like that to get our extra minerals. Remember, the fruits are the cleansers, and there's a time and a place to use the fruits on a solid food vacation. If we need that, some of us really need to get our lymph system going because we've got some serious things going on. Again, you got to weigh both factors. But when you go to something like carrot juice, for example, that's as high, if not higher, than most of your fruits. And then don't forget the sweet potatoes. When you're struggling getting the calories in on a solid food vacation, sweet potato and apple's the way to go. A 50-50 glass of sweet potato apples, 430 calories. That right there makes every program workable. So back to the original question, if I don't get, how do I get enough calories if I can't drink enough juices? You go to the sweet potato and apple. Really high in calories. Or just start adding sweet potato more into all your other juices. That in itself can bump up your calories. 540 calories in a pint of sweet potato juice, 320 in apple. 50-50, now you got 430 for 1 pint of that. But let's go back to the skinny fat, because I already gave the example of where they went from 25 to 35 years of age, and we saw how there's a 28% fat and only a 22% fat if they lost the 10 pounds. Again, if we compare that type of person with someone who is seriously malnourished, it's not just a lack of muscle, they're really seriously malnourished. You've got to figure out a way to get nutrient-dense calories in you. Carbohydrates are one thing. That's one of the main things we want to do. Protect the carbohydrate fuel tank so we don't keep going after our own tissue. But we need nutrient-dense foods to rebuild the body. And that's where the vegetables come into play. The vegetables are the builders. The vegetables have the minerals that we need that many of us are deficient in. And if you're not consuming enough of those, this may be a reason why you're struggling. So what I always recommend for everyone, when they're not doing well, and they are supporting their organs of elimination, and they are having bowel movements every day, and they're doing everything else to help support the system. That's what I tell them, stop drinking the fruit juice. See what happens on nothing but a vegetable juice day. And all of a sudden you feel better, and that's what you have to do, and if you can't do it, you don't do it. Obviously, right? So it's really simple. So many times all we have to do is just ask ourselves what we should do. And many times you'll find that answer because it's really not that complicated. The main thing we have to do, number one, is give the body everything it needs. And then number two, we support those organs of elimination. Very important. Number three, we have to then support the body in case it's damaged in any way. Now, I explain all of this in a seminar that I gave. And you can go down below in the description box and go to the first of my 3-step process. First step, solid food vacation. Second step, let's correct these 5 main mistakes on a permanent basis. Let's stop cooking our food. Let's stop eating animals. Let's stop eating plants we're not biologically adapted to eat. Let's stop processing our foods, and let's stop using chemicals. So that's the main thing we have to do. Those are the 5 main mistakes we need to correct. But once we add those 5 main mistakes onto our list of mistakes to correct, then we have these 2 groups of needs we have to satisfy. And that's the main thing we have to do. That's the first step. And we always do the first step no matter what. The other 2 steps are preliminary. Only one thing we have to do. That's the 3rd step. It's really the only step. I just added 2 preliminary steps. Number 1, because most of us aren't willing. And number 2, most of us are not able. We don't have the knowledge. And then what happens when we get the knowledge? Oh, I don't want to do that, right? That's why this is not an easy thing to convince people to do. That's why the solid food vacation is the solution. That's why it's an idea's time has come. Because it's not an easy thing to say, I'm going to stop eating the wrong food. Because you're still eating. But when you give your body a solid food vacation, you're in for a treat.